The Starling, starring Melissa McCarthy, Kevin Kline, and Chris O'Dowd, was very underwhelming, though it dealt with a very serious issue. But before I get started, if you haven't seen this movie, please consider this your spoiler warning. So I'm torn with this movie. It definitely hits you in the feels as to the subject matter. It deals with sudden infant death syndromes, otherwise known as SID, and with depression, in this instance leading from losing a child to SIDS. And you kind of see two different ways of dealing with the loss of a child and how that takes you in so many steps or in the grieving process. And it did a very good job in doing that. We see Lily, played by Melissa, and she is a fighter. She is trying to push down all the feelings and just kind of try to live a normal life as much as she can. But you can see throughout the movie that the memory and the loss of her child is affecting her in things that she do. She's at work, but she's not there. She's physically there, but her mind's not there. And you just see that aspect where you try to push on, you try to shove it in the back of your mind, but whether it be decorations, furniture in the house, whether it be just thoughts, little things here and there that remind you of that loss, that prevents you from moving forward. And in sharp contrast, we see Jack, which is played by Chris, that is basically given up. Even seeing Melissa or Lily, his wife, just makes him remember about the child that they lost. And he's in a hospital and out of depression, and I don't know if he tried to commit suicide, but he's dealing with that depression and just basically has no fight in him. He just wants to be left alone. And he's given up. Now, towards the end of the movie, he sees his wife's fight and kind of inspires him to move forward. And it just did two different grievance processes that people go through. And there's many more that people go through to deal with loss. But at the end of the day, they're both dealing with similar feelings, just reacting to them in a very different way. And this movie, having those two subjects, one obviously being the SIDS and the other one being the depression and dealing with grief and loss, are two very heavy subjects to try to pull off in a movie. And this movie tries to do that. Like I said, I respect the movie for what it was trying to show us and dealing with those subject matters. But at the end of the day, the movie just was all over the place. It wasn't well written. There was plot devices that just didn't go nowhere. Like even the character Larry, being played by Kevin Kline, he's there as somewhat of a mediator, but he doesn't go anywhere. And honestly, it doesn't feel like he helped any, except when the Starling, the bird, Melissa kind of throws a rock and just with her Joe Montana arm hits the bird. And I think this is what the movie was trying to show us, that when she injured this bird had babies, and she didn't want it to die. And Larry is a vet, but a retired therapist, and helps the bird, get healthy and breathe again. And Melissa nurtures it back to life. And that's what kind of breaks Melissa over, which a lot of mothers with that SID, not even just the SID, when they have abortions, they have that, at least not all, but some have a feeling of like they can't nurture something to life, that they just bring death. And they kind of hint on that too, first with the fruit. like she plants a garden, but it all dies, and she gets, in one of the episodes, she gets so disheartened that she starts to destroy her garden. But then she sees a fruit that's growing, and it kind of helps her a little bit along. And then with the starling, when she nurtures it back to health, it kind of pushes her on to say, yes, I can do this. And she has this blowout with her husband. But it just felt like the character of Larry was just there for Calvin Klein to have a role in this movie. But again, it's a tough project to try to pull off and make it where, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. I mean, I enjoyed the movie. It definitely had me thinking deeper in life, which I don't know if people want that in their movies, because movies are just meant to take you away to a different place. So being in this movie was very depressing from the beginning all the way almost to the end, but it just didn't go anywhere. Like I said, it was just a poor script with a very serious subject matter, and it just depends on your environment, if you've ever experienced it. Like me personally, I had a friend that lost a newborn to SIDS, and actually the baby wasn't even that newborn. I think it was like 1.5 years or 1 year, and they lost it to SIDS. And they grieved. Don't get me wrong. I mean, when you lose a child, it's the most devastating thing that can happen to parents. But they just jumped right back in, and within a few months, she was pregnant again, and they have a beautiful. No, now she's what, 11 years old now. So people deal with tragedy in different ways. So depending on what your circle is, you'll react to this movie a bit different than what I did. Again, I enjoyed the movie. It was just there was a lot of flaws in it. The pacing was horrible also. I could go on, but I just think they try to do something very respectable with dealing with SIDS and depression that comes from that event, that it's hard to talk too much bad about it. But for me, this movie was a C plus, just because there was a lot of plots that didn't go anywhere. The script was very lazy. The acting was good, from Melissa, from the main three, from Chris, Kevin, and Melissa. They all did a great job in acting, and the music was very it strings your heart a little bit with the music. But at the end of the day, I still have to give an honest review, and there was a lot of flaws with this movie. But anyways, those are just my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments, and like always, that's a wrap.